This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry.
How's everybody doing during this interesting time? I'm just waiting for John to come on line over here. Today's going to do something a little bit different. I wanted to start doing a little bit more live streaming. With hospitality people throughout the country, just to see how everybody's affected by this in our hospitality industry. And so I'm just waiting for Jonathon Smolensky to come on board. He's going to be talking about some initiatives that the hospitality industry have been putting together and going forward with. So I'm just waiting for him to come along if he can. Where are I? Okay. So as soon as he gets here, we'll start. How are you, Andrew? Are you quarantined now? Ah, there we go. Mr. Smolensky is here now. There we go. Add. Hey, buddy.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Have you ever done one of these before?
Never. My first time.
I'll be gentle.
That's okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let me guess what you're enjoying there.
Well, I've been spending the last few weeks pumping up everyone else's stuff, which I have no problem doing. But please guess what I'm drinking.
Ford's Gin Martini.
Oh, close.
With Maiden Eye Vermouth.
Close. I'm drinking Aylesbury Duck Vodka Martini.
You have
yeah, because that's what I have around the house, and I don't have any vermouth. So I fortified some Rosé Malbec, a la minute, and just put a little splash in. It's quite
ghetto.
Nice.
2 weeks in,
Yeah.
just ghetto straight away.
Yeah, I've been working all morning, but
I got dropped off this yesterday.
Oh, little book.
Just a little book.
Oh wow! Oh yeah. It doesn't look. I like how I'm like leaning in closer to the screen as if. Oh, nice. Very nice.
So this is going to be an interesting one because you've never done one of these before, and I've done a few.
Never.
So how about for everybody who's going to be watching pretty shortly here? How about you give your origin story?
My origin story.
Smolensky number one.
Okay.
Don't go too far back. How far? Like, when did you start in the industry? What do you do?
My first bartending job. Well, I mean, that's why I need to be interviewed. my first bartending job was in Sweden when I was 19 years old.
In Sweden?
Yeah. I was trying to, because I had moved there to pursue my dreams of being an NHL hockey player. That really fizzled out, but it was a great way for me to meet people, and learn Swedish and be involved in the community I pulled pints, and it wasn't the worst move in the world for me as a 19-year-old kid to move to Sweden as a Canadian trying to play hockey.
How long were you there for?
So, just over a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was able to learn Swedish. I didn't know you didn't know that about me.
No. This is what I like interviewing people, because we've been friends for over a decade. But it's the little things that you never how is that going to come up in conversation?
Yeah. Yeah, no, so that was my very first bartending job ever. I was pulling pints and opening Norrlandsöl at the student bars in Uppsala, Sweden. Yeah, I was 19.
So when did you come back to Canada?
I didn't move back to Canada until I was 23. I went from... Actually, that's not entirely true. I spent 6 months in Calgary, but I lived in Uppsala for a year, went to Calgary for 6 months, and then moved to Denver. And I worked for Fox Sports Rocky Mountain, and I realized because I wasn't going to be able to play hockey for a living, that I should try and find a different career, and so I ended up doing in broadcast journalism, and then I have also a backup in economics as well, and so I'm pretty fortunate to have a lot of familiarity with finance, which is very important right now. And then I moved back to Canada when I was 23, and then I started doing what all my friends were doing. All my friends at the time were working bar jobs. All my high school friends, and I ended up working behind the bar at Steamworks in Vancouver, and at the time, the owner of Steamworks had wanted to start Steamworks Brewing, the packaging side of things, and I had at that point already worked for a year for a BC winery as well, and so I had some familiarity with how that side of things worked, and that project fell through, and I just kept bartending. And now here I am. I was working a lot with wine and beer, and then eventually I got hired at Brix in Vancouver to help be part of their wine program, and that is right before all the stuff happened at George, with Sean Leighton and Keenan Hood and David Gregg, who's now in Toronto. And right before the Olympics and right before Tales of the Cocktail happened, and I was sort of in the epicenter of a lot of that. And then all of a sudden, I would find creative ways to use oxidized Malbec to make New York sours, right? And that's sort of how it all started. I'd been working for other brands on the side. I had helped build Giffard into what it ended up being in Western Canada, just as their sales manager. Had worked for a bunch of other wineries as well. And then after the Tales of the Cocktail, I got recruited to open Hawksworth with Cooper Tartival and Patrick Francis. And at that point, I knew already that I was going to start a liquor agency.
Really?
Because I had known that, because just after working for Giffard and after working in wine, and being really well versed in the bar scene and being part of Tales of the Cocktail, I had identified, you had all these different cocktails and cocktail ingredients that we would read about, but we wouldn't have the ability to actually play with them or get them. And I remember being behind this right before I left for Hawksworth. I remember being behind the bar one day with Sean Leighton, and Sean had just gone down to Seattle, and he had gone to, I can't remember the place, I think it's called De Laurenti in Seattle, and he picked up a bottle of Cocchi Americano, and he brought it back, and he said, "John, look, we can make really, really delicious Vespers now." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome." And he goes to me, "Oh, geez, I just wish there was a way where I didn't have to drive down to Seattle to go get this stuff." And I'm like, "You know what? That's it. I'm just gonna fucking do it. I'm gonna do it." So that's, I kind of started the agency behind the bar, back of the napkin, and I met the Siete Misterios Mezcal guys on a jog around the seawall in Vancouver.
Really?
True story. Yeah, true story. Yeah, I met them. Yeah, they were coming outside of Legacy liquor store. This is right when it was built, and this was before Daryl Lamb's time at Legacy. And started chatting with them and went inside and tasted their mezcals. And I knew I'd wanted to start an agency, and I had no idea at that moment that I was going to fall madly in love with mezcal. That was 2013 or 2014. Something like that. Yeah. 2013. I think it was 2013. Yeah. Was when it was. Yeah. Because I'd left for Hawksworth in 2011. This was 2 years. Yeah. It was 2013. So yeah, that's and now we're here. I Hawks, well, I've been full time with my own agency for 3-4 years now, but through the entire time, I've also sat on the board for as an executive director for the Bartenders Association in Canada. So I think besides Trevor Callies, I might be the longest tenured person on the board. So I've seen a lot of different things that have happened. I remember being the young guy when I first entered the hospitality industry, and so were you. I remember your faux hawk as well, and now we're here drinking.
Fucking fucking throwing that fucking on his big screen as well, throwing YouTube up on Optic.
Yeah, I love it.
On his big screen.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, this was before Instagram and before Facebook, but now we're here. Yeah.
So, talking about economics and sovereign, how have you we'll start on a personal level. How have you personally pivoted since the COVID-19? How is, like, on a rep level, how has the industry changed? Because I know on my part how it's changed for me, because I'm a director business. I don't have to go through the warehousing and all that sort of stuff. I have inventory myself. How's it changed for you as a rep?
Well, in full transparency, yesterday we were cheering because it was the first time we had sold a case of liquor in a week, which is sort of frightening. The agency that I run is a whole bunch of different premium spirits, and so it's not like people are out there right now drinking premium Navy strength gin martinis, right? So retail sales have skyrocketed, and I've talked to some brands where they're seeing unprecedented numbers for their value brands, and that's really good for them. So the big brands are doing quite well. Their influencer products, if you would, are not performing. But the stuff that is value driven is off the charts. So we haven't seen a decline in total revenue, but we have seen the product mix itself change greatly. Just 1 second here. I just need to.
While we have 2 seconds.
Sorry about that.
I want to welcome everybody to the live feed. Something new I'm going to start trying out in the next little while. I'll be sitting down with industry people all across Canada and chatting about how they're dealing with this lock-in and whatnot. Continue on. So you haven't seen a decrease in revenue, but you've seen a sales mix change up.
Well, I'm anecdotally, I'm talking from a net perspective, right? So it's not like the province has seen less alcohol sales. It's just who is obtaining that revenue, and the kinds of products that are being bought are totally different, right? I was talking to one private retailer that was telling me their Campari sales had gone through the roof. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, why is, and I thought to myself, Negroni is like the easiest bloody cocktail to make at home, right? Everyone knows how to make one now. And that was confirmed correct. The local spirits in a lot of the provinces seem to be doing okay. Because there is this incredible push out there to buy local and buy independent. Companies like ours that are importers of specialty spirits, I was trying to explain this to someone the other day. A company like there's not very many of us around. It's like when you go to the mall and you say, hey, I'm going to buy something nice. I'm going to go to the jewelry store, right? Who goes to the mall for a jewelry store? And then there's many jewelry stores in the mall, and we're like the premium mom and pop shop jewelry store. We're not the Larizia or right? So not only do you have to make a decision to buy something premium, or buy something that's a luxury within the luxury category, right? Companies like mine live in the premium side of the luxury category. So, though no one's out there buying Louis XIII, but they're not spending less total money on alcohol. Let's put it that way.
I I heard a stat that 40% increase in sales overall for BC liquor stores.
Yeah, retail is through the roof, and across the country, retail is hiring, and not just government retail, private retail as well. Private retail as well. So that's impressive. Those are impressive numbers. But for influencer brands or specialty brands that are just driven through bars and restaurants, right? Those are the brands that. There's Christina Vieira says the LCBO last week did 20 million. Yeah, and I had one retailer tell me that people are buying flavored vodka like it was 20 years ago.
Says the guy who's having a vodka martini with
I am a vodka martini
rosé vermouth aluminium.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just needed to make something real quick, and the bottles were in front of me. So, necessity is the mother of all creation, right? So,
what sort of feedback you've been getting from restaurateurs and restaurants? Because I know that in your clique in Vancouver, you're sort of plugged into everybody. What's the sort of general gist? And outside, because I know we're going to start talking about the government initiatives and that sort of thing. So you were talking very heavily about the mechanisms in between. Like, you can make an announcement, that's great, but how do you actually make it work and happen quickly? What's the general feeling from the restaurateurs that you've talked to about the situation?
Fear. Not just for the current situation, but for what could possibly happen afterwards as well. Even once restaurants and bars start opening up, it's not like all of a sudden people are magically going to drop in and there's going to be really high check averages again, right? And so there's going to be this trickle down effect that's going to linger for quite a long time. Canada is so tourism dependent. And especially places like Victoria or Banff or Whistler, even places in the Maritimes too, where they're very, very small business driven, right? We have absolutely no idea what's happening in the United States. I remember working at Hawksworth. I mean, you could, at any given moment, 40% of our room was filled with people who are not from Canada. So that's something that I don't think gets talked about enough. What the impact is going to be. Just not just now, but later. But right now, it is a hurry up and wait game, and I think part of it is tied to the conversation about what the government continues to roll out from a day-to-day perspective. And I'm anxious. I know a lot of restaurateurs are anxious. There's a lot of programs that have been announced. There's not very many mechanisms in place so far, and it's a very, very, very difficult thing to do, to have to sit on your hands and wait. You want to be able to do something, but right now there's not too much to do. I applaud some of these very, very creative restaurateurs for doing cocktail kit to go packages. Different delivery services. It does appear that from the back of house perspective, there's still places to cook, right? For to some degree. There is takeout happening, so that's good. But I think places where liquor and cocktails and bar programs are a major source of their revenue, nerves. We've already seen a couple places. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I'm isolated here in Vancouver. But we've seen a couple places say, you know what, screw it, we're just not reopening. This is it. This is the end of it. For cities with really, really high rents and high operating costs, like Vancouver and Toronto, there's obviously huge nerves. You have to remember, the restaurant industry, the margins that you're pulling in are sometimes underneath 10%. And you just can't make that cash flow last. So you have to find ways to generate different revenue streams. But there's a lot of places that can't do that.
Do you think that it's a time for innovation when it comes to restaurants? I've talked to a lot of restaurateurs who would never ever do to go and takeout and stuff like that, and they're getting more and more creative. I know as soon as I finish this conversation, I'm zipping over to Tags, and me and Solomon are doing up big cocktail kits. for markets one. They've done really well. Like DoorDash in Victoria here is
Yeah.
getting all their drivers to get SIR numbers and stuff like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think, do you feel like it's a time of innovation? I'm seeing a ton of innovation from restaurants that have sort of kept the status quo for the last 10 years, and all of a sudden they've been pushed to innovate in a way that I don't think they ever would have done if this didn't happen.
I mean, that's the bartender creed, right? Adjust or die. And I think that innovation is something that's no longer a creative outlet. It's a necessity in order to survive. There's just so much general uncertainty that you have no choice right now. And I can advise this to any bar owners or bar people that are out there. You got to be proactive. No one is going to don't create roadblocks for yourself right now, right? Like, yes, obviously work within the rules, but no one has the solutions, so you might as well give it an effort. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So yeah, you got to get out there and you have to start thinking outside the box and doing something different. And I got to tell you, there's so much camaraderie I feel that's happened across the country, specifically within our industry, that you're going to be applauded and you're going to be supported. And there's a lot of people out there that wants to see you succeed. They don't know how to help you, but they want to help you. And trying to do something that's different or innovative. I saw what Supernova did today. They're the Dolly Trolley cocktail kits, brilliant. Right, brilliant branding, thrown together. That's the sort of things that it will take for the interim. And you know what? Possibly these are ideas that can have legs and different sources of revenue streams after this is all over. Because this will end.
Well, that's my big thing right now. Is I've been helping out restaurateurs in the micro, helping them just like on the ground, because I'm looking at the macro, and while the government announces things every single day, and ABBC and BCRFA here in BC are really putting out memos every day, that sort of thing, I can't see a solid path to the end of the light, the end of the tunnel. It's because it's sort of everything's there, but nothing's in play yet. And so the macro is still something that I'm out of touch with, because I don't think I can wrap my head around the macro quite yet.
Well, you're not the only one, and it's there's actually, from the CPBA standpoint, we're about to partner up with a really large accredited, well, not very large, but an accredited accounting firm, and we're gonna do a Zoom chat, and we're gonna make it open to all hospitality professionals across Canada, and have a CPA and CA actually start answering some of these questions, because and that's going to happen if you continue to look at CPBA feeds, and it's going to be available for everyone. We're just working on that might be announced as early as today. But part of the problem right now is there's a lot of things that are being said, and as we spoke about before, there's no mechanisms. So let me give you an example. Before Trudeau announced that 75% of employee wages were going to be subsidized, we were only at 10, and we were way behind the rest of Europe, right? And there was a lot of criticism, right? But even within that 10%, right, even at that moment when companies could only subsidize 10% of employee wages, that was not eligible for companies that were set up as registered partnerships in Canada. So why? Now, like, I guess conventional thinking is like, hey, if you're a partnership, you probably have another source of income, or maybe your partner does. There's a million reasons why companies get set up the way that they are. We're not a sole proprietorship. We're a limited liability company, even though I'm a 100% shareholder, right? You can be a partnership. There's so many reasons, things why. And every single day, things are changing. So, and right now, even some of the stuff that's being announced, there's no mechanisms for it. And if you'll see the announcements come, and then you'll see questions happen, and then you just get these circular. Again, we're working on this. Again, we're working on this. So I think I believe everyone is acting in good faith. From the financial side, nothing's really going to happen until April 6th, and everything's going to be happen retroactively. Check your sources. When the accountants are telling me that they don't know what to do because there's nothing in place, they're going crazy out there right now. It's because people are calling them because they're seeing the news.
Yeah.
Right. And they see the news, and then they call the accounting firms, and the accounting firms is like, we haven't been instructed how to do any of this yet. So we will have to wait, and I think that'll come pretty quickly, and we might know next week that what the CPBA is going to do. We've specifically targeted next Friday to do this information session with the accounting firm. But just from on my side, because I am talking to these sorts of people. I have to, I look at my own company. I have absolutely, we sold one case of liquor last week, and we're like, hooray! So, talking to you, we'll figure it out. But I think there's a lot of people trying to figure it out, right? And so it's really hard to ask people for patience when there's a pandemic going on. But it's probably the best use of mental energy, right?
So, on an employee standpoint, how are you seeing all the initiatives? So I know that when we posted today, there's a ton of initiatives out there for the industry. I found that probably Canada was about a week behind the US. I found like Tobin and that sort of thing jumped on the initiative side of things, and the USBG had jumped on big hospitality-backed initiatives. Also, it was going to the USBG as well.
Well, remember, we have to be very careful. Because the Americans do it too. It is very much an apples and oranges argument, right? The way that we're set up from a wireframe perspective is so much different than how Canada is, or the United States is set up. In the United States, the USBG, if you look up their nonprofit, because they're a nonprofit as well, so you can look at their tax returns, right? Yeah. So if you look up their tax returns, you'll see a tremendous amount of it spent on education programs, and essentially cocktail competitions, right? Yeah. Because in the United States, these brands are not allowed to give away stuff in the same way that we are in Canada. So that's number one. Number two, when the dollar failed more or less in Canada about 3-4 years ago, you saw a massive landscape change in terms of who the actual registered agents were in Canada. So a company like mine, we're Canadian owned and operated, there used to be a lot of companies like mine. There's very few companies like mine now, and there's a tremendous amount of conglomerates, and most of them are either publicly traded foreign companies or large American conglomerates. There's now Breakthrough Canada and Southern Glazers Canada, and those didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago, right? So the concept of Canada as the 51st state is something that we're sort of stuck with. And when we're talking to a lot of these companies, they've kind of dealt with what they've known first, and they're still trying to figure out Canada. So to say that we're a week behind, you're probably right. But the reason that we're a week behind is because we're beholden to the fact that the major movers in this country are not Canadians. That's the reality of the situation.
So how do you find the initiatives that have come through for the bartenders? How have they been placed and how they're sort of rolling? I
got a list.
A lot.
I got a list, and I put an open call because and I see there's only 19 people in the chat, but that's 19 more people than we can. So as Christina say, nonprofits that have advocacy or education mandates have greater leeway in the United States than Canada. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is really trickled. It's a slower trickle down thing. There's just once you cross the border, there's another layer of administration, I think. So just talking about things, I put a group of stuff together, or things together. What's happening in Atlantic, Canada right now? I was talking to bartenders. Charton Hobbs is doing something really cool. They're paying bartenders right now to create content, and more importantly, they're giving them bottles to do that, right? So the bartenders are not out of pocket, which is really, really important, right? Because there's a lot of people trying to do stuff, and it's like, hey, by the way, spend some money, right? And we'll do stuff. Okay, obviously the heart is in the right place, but that's, we're all still trying to figure it out, but that is is happening a little bit. In Quebec, everyone's favorite friend Andrew Whibley has set up a GoFundMe initiative for Quebec. In Ontario, there's the Bartender Benevolence Fund, and on Tuesday, during Toplack Tuesdays, I think that Jonathon and Alana and Gordon and Bev are going to talk more about the Bartender Benevolence Fund. Dan Cronin is up in Sudbury doing a video series on Instagram TV with information sessions. Civil Liberties is doing live Zoom hangouts, which are very therapeutic. I've been on a couple of them. Those are great. In Saskatchewan, there's a lovely lady. Her name is Danielle Pingert. She works at 612, and she set up a GoFundMe as well for the Saskatchewan hospitality industry. We can't forget in smaller markets, right? It's not like you can just go get a job at the LCBO or the SAQ or something, right? The whole industry is stopped, right? And I think we have to. I think we're better off thinking about the lowest common denominator is the wrong word, but the smallest town to try and push up the person at the neighborhood pub in the truck stop, right? We have to think about those people too, right? Because those are the people that don't necessarily have a lot of alternatives that are out there. In provinces like Saskatchewan and Manitoba and in Atlantic Canada, those are definitely concerns. In Alberta, there's Sovereign's own Alan Screaton is doing his virtual tips for hospitality Pantry cocktail series, which has been really, really, really entertaining. Bacardi and Campari have teamed up with Pablo to do bottled delivery service in Edmonton. In BC and Victoria, Shrawan Khanna is doing delivery services, and he's also set up a GoFundMe for Victoria hospitality people. And then in Vancouver, there's a Vancouver Food and Beverage Community Relief Fund. I actually don't know so many of those people. It's national, I think, that where things start to get interesting. To speak on the CPBA perspective, and just so people know, the Canadian Professional Bartenders Association is a nonprofit society in Canada, and it's designed to help foster community growth, and it's 100% volunteer, but it uses its group numbers to try and create value add opportunities, right? And if you're a member, you have access to things like third party extended medical and dental, for example. So that's a good. So from an association standpoint, just bring the masses together and use our numbers in strength. The CPBA has launched the Relief Measures Fund, and that's on a national platform, and that's for any bartender to sign up for. And we are talking with several brands, larger brands. We've actually got confirmation from a few different brands so far of some significant money coming down the pipeline, which is really, really good news. And it's been a bit of a divide and conquer approach, but that there is some money coming, and essentially the CPB has waived membership, and you can go onto CanadianBartenders.com, register yourself as a member, fill out the CPB Relief Measures Fund form, and then just mark yourself as whether or not you truly need money. And then the CPB is going to give you a little bit of relief right now. I think $50 bi-weekly. That's the estimation, and that's what what we think that we can manage with the expectation of how much money that comes in. Maybe that changes, but that's something. And if you take that and you group it with your EI benefits or CRF or CRP, pardon me, and then what some of the local things are going, so hopefully that helps people out. As I said, next Friday, you'll see on the CPBA feeds a information session with an accounting firm, so we can actually get some professionals in here instead of share. It's great to share information, but it's good to have it like concise and coming from someone whose literal job it is, and
random Facebook.
Yeah, it's like a random. Yeah, that's a really big problem right now. Actually, is people are sharing stuff and there's a lot of chatter, and there's all of a sudden everyone's an accounting expert, right? But I think everyone's doing such a wonderful job of trying to help each other out. It's actually beautiful to watch. We should be so grateful to be Canadian, and it's so incredible to watch people come together, and I don't think there's any room for any shaming or anything like that. Everyone is doing such an incredible job working together. Just to finish this list, Breaking Bread Now is an interesting resource. If you go to breakingbreadnow.com, across the country, it's a whole bunch of representing a whole bunch of independent bars and restaurants that are doing to-go food services. There's almost 400 restaurants from British Columbia to Newfoundland that are signed up on that site. Not a lot of people know about that. One's really good. The RC show. Thank you, Christina Vieira, on this one. Christina and Evelyn, if you haven't followed Christina and Evelyn on Instagram or Facebook, they're out of Toronto. They're industry all-stars. They're doing so much for our community right now, and I mean, we should be so grateful that they carry the maple leaf on their backs, but they continue to find different resources. So she just let me know about this one today. The Restaurants Canada show is doing a nationwide hospitality relief fund with the Hospitality Workers Foundation, which is a scholarship organization. That's going to be announced early next week. So if you turn into what Christina does and what Restaurants Canada do, Bartender Atlas, which is also a Toronto-based group, which is Josh Linley and Jessica Blaine Smith. They have a whole bunch of different educational programs. They always got something on the go, and they're great. They're super active with the community. They're always thinking about ways to try and get bartenders money, especially in the realm of cocktails. Right. What Bacardi is doing right now, I think, from coast to coast, very, very, very impressive response with focusing on food. And check in with your local Bacardi salesperson or territory manager, regardless where you are, from Matt Boyle in Halifax to Kevin Brownlee out west, and even their subsidiary brands. They have, not only are they supporting bartenders with food, they're going to local independent restaurants right now and giving them and saying, hey, we're going to give a $500 or $600 account here for bartenders to buy stuff. So everyone wins when that happens.
We're working on that for you right now.
Yeah, and there's a lot. And then also it's important to note the hand sanitizer thing. So actually, the federal government has asked or requested that all distilleries that can make hand sanitizer do, and we've seen an incredible amount of compliance. From Corby's down to Spirit of York, right? It's incredible. Ironically, the TTV in the U.S. has more or less forced all distilleries that can make hand sanitizer to make hand sanitizer. So that's a list of different stuff. So there's a lot of stuff on the go.
Yeah, on the provincial level, I've been working with the Craft Distillers Guild with the hand sanitizer thing, and the guys here on the island and in the interior have been insane. Shelter Point actually poured whiskey that was in a barrel, actually poured new make that was in a barrel for a month out to make hand sanitizer. Because originally when hand sanitizer started getting called for, it was heads and tails, but that quickly ran out. And now everybody is doing it. There's a little bit of grey area with the government, the big provincial government right now, about how much excise they should be paying on hand sanitizer, which has been a fight right now. But yeah, we had a hangout here in Victoria last night, and Brennan called back from Steelhead. He was just running the stills for Sanitizer, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
If there was ever a time, oh wait, I'm trying to read. Keep reading what Christina says. I can't read it on my screen, but it says
Restaurant Canada is a national charity. Will be open to all workers, including your dishwashers and your buses. Will be announced next week, but will be open to anyone in all markets.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. That's fantastic news. That's brilliant news. Yeah. In terms of what the different distilleries are doing, this is right now. It's, if there's ever a time when it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, it's right now.
Yeah, I'm hooking. Because brewery sales have gone down. Like, no one's kegging beer right now. So everybody's got beer in kegs that they can't sell because OP is gone. So there's a lot of breweries now hooking up with distilleries and giving them beer for free to make into hand sanitizer, giving them wash. So
the hard part with the OP sector is, from the federal lens, they're splitting up things as essential and non-essential, right? And where does OP fit on that ledger? We're on premise, right? That's the problem, right? Do people need to go to bars and restaurants? I mean, I do, you do, and probably everyone in this chat does, right? But I think that's part of and that's why I'm concerned that it'll be the last. But again, I see that now, and I've been wrong about so many. Well, I mean, I'm wrong every day anyway. I don't know why you chose me. but I mean,
I've talked to a lot of guys at the BCRFA and stuff like that. I think there's going to be a lot of legislation that we've wanted for a number of years come down the pipeline, mainly as a stimulus plan. Like the legislation changes that I think we've all been wanting as OPs for the last 10 years is going to be vetted through the government before this is all over. My thing is when I see operators say it's a 2 to 4 week process before this is all over and we go back to normal, and all the memos coming out of the liquor board right now say all these rules are justifiable until July 15th. I'm like, okay, well, the liquor board and the government think that this is going to last till at least mid-July for to-go food and all that sort of stuff. It has the rules at the very bottom. So I think how long do you think it's going to be?
Until bars and restaurants are open again?
Everything goes back to normal.
Well, here's the thing. I keep looking at what I'm fortunate enough, and so are you, to have a lot of connections in Singapore, and a little bit in South Korea. And you talk to them, right? And they're starting to get back to normal now. And
Singapore's gone the other way. Singapore's gone to lockdown now.
Well, because of the people that are coming in, right? Yeah. So okay. Well, that's good to know, right? So I mean, the thing is the point is Asia in that part of the world, they're starting to debate whether or not they should reopen right now, and we're nowhere near that. But over there, they're like, should we start? I saw the Professional Basketball Association in China has asked people to come back. They're thinking about starting games again, but no spectators, right? Just slowly start. So think about that timeline, right? So it's April, and COVID broke out there during Christmas, right? Yeah. So that's 4 months, right? So one of the hard parts is our intrinsic connection to the United States. Right, and as much as things might happen, get back to normal, here we might have to wait for our friends down south because so many of our things, right? That's actually another thing that we haven't talked about. Actually, is the Canadian dollar, right? And the bottom, it's crazy how volatile the market is right now. But the Canadian dollar has lost almost 10% of its value or in the last 2 weeks, and that's going to drive retail prices up, right? There's no choice. It's great that we're buying Canadian but at the same time, we're really, really dependent on imported American goods for a lot of different stuff. So just anecdotally speaking, people who are doing anything that has one iota that's not Canadian might end up driving prices up, or possibly some things just won't survive. But I think, I mean, it's so hard to say. I mean, and I don't feel comfortable answering because I'm not an expert. But you know, you'd have to think the summer, right? Yeah, until everyone felt safe, and yeah, that's, you know, gun to my head, I would say July, August, or something like that. More importantly, tourism season is ruined, right? I think that at this point. But you know, we go back to our original point, you know, for bars and restaurants and seeing all this innovation that's out there. You know, fortune favors the bold, right? And there's a lot of bold ideas right now, and it's really great to see. So I do think that, you know, there is a reason for us to ruminate on forward progress now more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, how are you feeling about all of it? You good?
I mean, personally, is this being recorded? I mean,
Yes.
I'm frightened for my business. I'm not the kind of person who's going to go out there and say, "Hey, buy Aylesbury Duck," or buy, you know, Bitterman's liqueurs right now, because trying to tell people what to buy right now is just. I see a lot of brands are taking a bath on that stuff right now too, especially on offline stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is not the time to promote your brands. This is the time to find ways to be of service to your fellow Canadians. This is much larger than the brand. So I'm nervous. You know, we're a small Canadian-owned and operated company, and we're importing, and so everything now is 10% more expensive because we talked about the dollar, and we're gonna find a way. We're gonna find a way. I wake up every single day, and there's a network of 15 professionals that I work with. They're my family. I love them. I think about ways to help them get their own island and mansion and yacht one day, and I'm driven by that. So I'm going to continue to do that. I work for them. On the brand side, there's I'm nervous for some of these independent brands that are out there that are in our portfolio, especially the ones that from Latin America and South America, where Italy and France and Spain are such important markets for them. Those are not markets where those are more merchant to merchant markets, and there's less ROI on marketing initiatives in markets like that, if that makes sense. So I'm nervous for some of the small independent mezcal and tequila brands that we work with, cachaça and pisco, yeah, and the you know, things that live in the premium category. But you know, we have each other, right? And honestly, like,
and we can do this.
You know, let's put it in perspective. Right, you know, we should be so grateful that we have each other. This community is incredible. Everyone is uniting from coast to coast, and that is honestly, you know, what's more important. If I lose everything that I've built up, I will start over again. But I don't, you know, and we'll figure it out.
Christina just said, is there a good chance that we'll be out of quarantine with a closed border to the US? You both do it a lot nationally. How do you think the bar restaurant in Canada could adjust to this reality? Can I start this one? Because
please, yeah.
Because in Victoria, like you said earlier, Victoria is so tourist dependent. And I've personally always ran everything, Clive's, the whole shebang, to always focus in on the locals, and then anything tourist-wise is cream on top. And I know a lot of businesses don't have that sort of, not mentality, but they have that sort of luxury, I suppose, to not have to focus on tourists. I think if we don't have US and overseas tourists, which is a very big thing for summer,
it is.
I think we need to be super creative when it comes to our social media marketing. And right now, I think during this time for takeout food and initiatives and stuff like that, brand awareness and people's reputation is far more important than it probably ever has been. Even though it is important, but it's never been at the forefront the way it should be now. The restaurants.
Well, everyone's on the internet.
Hey.
Everyone's on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's on social media right now. I think initiatives that include staff meals to low-income workers and so on and so forth, at the end of this all is going to be a big player in where people go and spend their dollars, their minimal dollars in each venue. But I think we need to be more creative with our social media marketing, especially for to go. Like I talked to my guys in Singapore, they're just about to go into full lockdown for restaurants and bars, and only do to-go foods. And I said, get ahead of it now. Tons of social media marketing to get your to-go menu. I think every restaurant should be looking at swag stores like T-shirts and that sort of thing. Take this time to set up Shopify properly and get T-shirts and swag and as many lines of revenue going into your restaurant. And everybody should be posting on social media more often, even if it is just a bank of photos that you have, just so that you have that relevance in the feed when people are looking through it.
I'm going to ask you this because I just see Christina's last question here. How can we pivot menus, for example?
As of right now?
Yeah.
I think a lot of restaurants are going, well, how do I tie my new to-go menu in with my brand and so on and so forth? And I think the pivot has to be, if the way I look at it is if Avery can pivot their menu to do to-go in Chicago, I think any restaurant should be able to do a pivot. And I don't think you overthink it. I think you figure out a way that sticks within your brand and your concept that's to-go doable.
I also think that you need to make sure that you establish cost certainty on your menu. Don't put yourself into a situation whereby your inputs are subject to massive variables, and because again America is the elephant, and every time the elephant moves, the floor trembles, right? Something major changes if we are dependent on sourcing things that are not within our control. We are creating chaos for ourselves. So we need to be fastidious, and we need to be judicious, and we need to be, even from a menu perspective, I think a bit conservative with these menus and a bit simplistic when we roll them back out. And make sure that we delineate and create different tiers within our menus. There are people out there that are recession proof, and they will spend money to support. And make sure when you're putting the ingredients for the people that are not subject to price elasticity, right? If they're going to spend money, make sure they're spending money on the baller menu stuff. And make sure that the inputs are things that you feel comfortable supporting, that are initiatives that can trickle down, that can help the rest of the industry, right? And then don't be afraid to make your cash, right? You have to have this right thing of a mix of things that are good for the soul and good for the pocketbook. And so no one is going to blame you for trying to make sure that the things that are catalyzing and harnessing your cash flow are it doesn't matter what they are, right? You at the end of the day, you can't help anybody if you can't stay in business, right?
Well, and that's the things I was talking to. I've talked to a couple of restaurants about pricing on bottles of wine and stuff like that for to-go alcohol.
Yeah.
And like Pags has got a huge inventory. So do you want to sit on that inventory and have it burning up interest rates, or do you want it to move with a 10 to 15% profit on top? Like, I think that right now with to-go alcohol, the way it is, you should be just trying to move it and make a little bit of coin on the top. instead of sitting on that sucker for 2-3 months before you reopen.
Cash flow is everything, and it's like, remember, your inventory in some sense is tied to your rent, and by holding inventory, it's almost the equivalent of being short on a stock, right?
Yeah.
so you're not running a library out there, but it's really hard for your pride, right, to say that. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation, but I just think that you formulate a plan, right, and you stick to that plan, and you chart that plan, and you evaluate how that plan. It's just like how small business, right? Like, choose one thing, right, and start just data collecting everything, right, and evaluate what's working, and if what's working, if you can identify what's working, continue to expose those avenues, and for the things that are not working, make sure that you change them, right? So you don't fall on a grenade, because your pride.
It goes back to the analogy you used earlier. Like, you miss all the shots you don't make. And that's completely true. Like, Sol and I chatted about doing this cocktail thing. He's like, I'm not sure if liquor sales will really work out for us. I'm like, yeah, but we may as well just do it. It's going to take us 3 to 4 hours to fix.
You won't know.
If you sell one next week, that's X amount of dollars that you didn't have this week. So, but what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to save this and put it as a podcast, and I'll link everybody up for this one. What I'm going to do is I'll touch base with you, John, and we'll get all the links we need for everything that's going on, and I'll put that all into the podcast as well as on Facebook and stuff. I'm going to save it and do it as an IGTV later this week as well, so everybody can come back and watch again. But thanks so much for this, buddy. I'm glad that we did it now, because I don't feel like we would have had a podcast if we sat down like Toronto last year or something. It wouldn't have been as impactful as it was today.
Well, I mean, I hope so. I hope people took a value to it. I really appreciate all the questions and the interaction. Again, there are some incredible leaders in this country. Make sure you follow them. Like, out east, the Hallie team. What Christina and Evelyn and Andrew Toplack and Nick Kennedy and Gord Hanna and all these people in the Ontario side, Andrew Whibley and Kate Bushel in Quebec. There's a lot of different leaders across the country that are doing great stuff. I will leave you with this example, right? It's as if you don't know until you try. The concept of the CPBA Relief Measures Fund was back of the napkin, side Slack channel stuff, and we didn't really know what would happen, but we knew that we were national. We had membership across the country. Like, fun facts, even before this happened, 35% of our membership was not from British Columbia. But we're like, if we don't create a landing spot, a centralized place, right, how are we supposed to entice brands to donate? And if the idea is to just get cash into people's hands that need it, if we don't do something, then we're not even giving ourselves a chance. So we did, and now I can tell you that a couple major companies have stepped up, and that's fantastic. And let's never leave a Canadian behind.
Thanks for your time, buddy.
Take care, brother. Cheers.
See you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.